Ultimately, who is responsible for Mark Barmore's death? I mean, the report says the shooting at the moment was justified, but then lists all these errors leading up to it. And the report doesn't seem to say he is responsible for his death or the police are responsible. So,
you know,
which is it?
there's pending litigation, and I'll let, because you're really starting when you ask those types of questions, you know, that's why we have a court system. I'll tell you this, there's a difference, wearing my old hat as a lawyer, doing personal injury law, there's a difference between what would be the legal cause and the proximate cause and what they may call, you know, the but-for cause. You know, if Mark Barmore stayed in bed that day, or these officers, you know, maybe the event doesn't occur. The law doesn't necessarily look at that level of causation. When it looks at proximate cause, and we see that we had a justified shooting, that's where, you know, I think a court's going to, one of the areas they're going to have to examine. Again, I'll let Mr. Hayes answer that, but what we're asking is a series of different questions related to the administrative review. Administrative review is designed to not just point out, you know, what a court might want to say is the legal cause. What can this department do in every possible way to improve so that we can assure the community we're doing the absolute best job we can to assure the safety of our citizens and the safety of our officers. I don't know if you want to comment further on the legal cause, but
as far as a statement from the police union regarding this assessment, taking issue with officer training relating to these circumstances, specifically saying the City of Rockford Police Department has substantially cut its training because of budget constraints. Reaction to that?
well, you know, I'll let the chief, who knows the department's budget issues a lot better than I, to comment on the specifics. But I'll tell you, as a general rule, obviously we're all working within constraints. Outside trips for training and the like, we're trying to do our best to minimize those types of expenses. Internal training, the type of training that our officers do on a ongoing basis at roll calls, we could, you know, there's been some of the training and a diversity training, for example, that came up within our Department of Justice conversations that we've already implemented during the course of the last several months, even before the outside assessment was completed. Chief, you can comment a little bit more about the training issue.
We're extremely grateful that we've been able to train the whole department in cultural competency and racial profiling, 8-hour sessions, most recently with the assistance of the Department of Justice Community Relations Unit. We've also been able to train the whole department in crisis management, de-escalating situations, when you respond to a barricaded subject or a person who may have a gun or who may have a knife. So there are challenges with the budget. Certainly the training has to be looked at. We have to decide what's best for the department and how can we maximize our in-house trainers, and if we use any sort of leverage with technology. But I'm comfortable where we're at. Could we be doing more? Absolutely.
Chief, would you expect any kind of change as to the status of officers Poole and North returning to their former duties, or is it too early to tell?
Those issues regarding the officers directly involved will be deferred until the completion of the disciplinary issue. They remain on administrative leave, are likely to remain in that status at least until that matter is concluded.
Did these two officers have that de-escalation training the chief was just talking about?
I don't. Again, I think since it's part of the internal investigation, we're going to wait to answer any of those questions until that's complete.
Regarding the promotion of Dave Hopkins to Deputy Chief of Professional Standards, how have his duties expanded to justify a $3,300 bump in pay given the city's budget crisis?
Well, we currently had a vacancy with a lieutenant's position because we don't currently have a list. And so yes, there was under $4,000 pay increase. We have to look at the needs of the department, look at the needs of the community, and this was the right time to elevate Lieutenant Hopkins to Deputy Chief in that capacity and expand that capacity to take in all training, take in all development, take the administrative review process, and most importantly, take in these recommendations, develop this working group, the 27 recommendations, and then down the, in the coming days with the Department of Justice, is take many of the recommendations on the complaint process that have directly to do with internal affairs.
Chief, I just wanted to make sure, do you feel that these officers had sufficient training for the situation they were in? And what's your level of responsibility for their training?
Again, we're not going to comment on these specific officers, given the, on areas that aren't within the confines of the report. The report speaks for itself in terms of areas that are raised of concern, and at least until we get to the point where we've actually published a final determination on that internal investigation, we won't be commenting on it.
Mayor, how would you characterize this entire episode and how it reflects on the leadership of Chief Epperson?
Well, two things. Number one, I applaud the department and the chief for being very direct, for being very transparent and engaging, given the unfortunate tragedy that occurred on August 24th. This has been obviously hard on our officers, obviously hard, very hard on the family members of Mr. Barmore, and this has been a challenging, extremely challenging time for our community. You know, on top of the fact that we've got the state's highest unemployment rate, we've got a number of challenges in our schools, we got a lot of problems, and then you have, you know, an event like this occur, it makes it extremely challenging. Let me, however, comment on this. Given all of that, the extremely positive movement that is happening right now within our department, where the union members, the administration, and the community are coming together, is something that will shape us in a positive way permanently. It's going to be something that out of a very tough, very negative, a very tragic situation will be the positive outcome that we will take and move forward. They will be substantive changes. That's, again, why we're open, we're transparent. The community will help us move forward, will help us hold ourselves accountable to achieve the goals that we've laid out. And that's something that at the end of the day, this community can be very proud of, because we can now hold ourselves up amongst a set of other departments and communities around the country that have taken the deep dive to say we're not going to set the bar at a low level, we're going to set the bar at the very highest level, we're going to be as absolutely open and transparent as we can be, and the citizens of this community should be very proud of that.
Mayor, let's wrap up the question.
Yeah,
Prior to this release of this today, what efforts are made with the family members, the ministers groups, the people, the community involved with this? Has there been with this specific report anything?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, as I mentioned, the biggest thing that I could say, which has the best promise for sustained long-term results, have been the absolutely vigorous and challenging discussions within the Department of Justice voluntary mediation process. The DOJ approached us and said, we see that Rockford is going through this. We've been through this before with other communities. Would you accept our help? We quickly answered yes, we would accept your help. We've been able to work with professional mediators with the Department of Justice, and that's got the, as I said, the best hope for long-term sustained improvements. They've been through it a time or two. That's why we've had very tough discussions, because we're putting the very toughest questions on the table. And I think, again, that's why the community can be very proud that we didn't just say, you know, the shooting's justified, just discipline or address any conduct related to the individual officers and end it there. That may have happened in another community. In our community, however, we have taken the steps of saying we're going to be very public, very open, very transparent, and we're going to lay out a very vigorous path to improve. And again, that's happening through that process and through the voluntary work with our union and other members of our staff to make the changes that we've discussed.